Tom Balderston, general partner of Bullish. Today I'm here with Brian DeRosa and Amber McMillan, co-founder of CLEO, one of the most recent investments out of Brand Fund 2, and excited to share more. So launched in 2024, CLEO is fundamentally rethinking the skincare experience, combining clinical grade technology with customer first design to make cosmetic laser as approachable and routine as a trip to your local coffee shop. Early performance in Minneapolis shows that this isn't just a niche trend. It's beginning a much broader shift in skin rejuvenation, hair removal, and tattoo removal. So welcome, Brian and Amber. I'm excited for the Bullish community to get to know you all a little bit better. With that, we just want to start out. So what is CLEO and how did you decide that this had to exist?
At its core, CLEO is an aesthetic dermatology business that's focused on next-gen laser treatments. We founded the business roughly a year ago around this heretical thesis that laser is the future of beauty. And a lot of this is rooted in one of the biggest trends we see over the next couple of decades, that being health and wellness becoming increasingly evidence-based and backed in science-backed modalities. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that today's consumer is unbelievably sophisticated and is changing behaviors rapidly, informed by data and deep research into wellness. And I think some great examples that we take inspiration from are the fact that like Athletic Brew is the number one beer in Whole Foods right now as consumers wake up to detrimental effects of alcohol on sleep and people steering away from processed food and seed oils now. We think that as those industries get reshapen, we're going to see something very similar happen in what we call big beauty. We think it's long overdue for a shakeup because today's consumer is demanding ROI on the investments that they're making in their own skincare. And we think that the lens through which we traditionally view skincare today, that being topical products, are for the most part really not equipped to move the core markers of skin health and longevity. Virtually all of the core skin concerns that we care about, from like aging to pigmentation, originate in the deep layers of the skin that can't be addressed by topicals because the epidermis is a pretty good barrier. Why we love lasers is they can penetrate deep and get to the root of your concern. So we're really focused on taking the stress out of this category, as we think is like the big unlock to make it increasingly mainstream, and ultimately usher in a new era of skincare. It's much more routed in efficacy, transparency, and accessibility.
I think it would be great just to take a step back. We were super fascinated when we were making investments, certainly in your backgrounds. I think Brian is starting in Goldman Sachs and certainly, moving into Blank Street Coffee and certainly the hyperscale there. Amber used the long tenure at 24-Hour Fitness, Lifetime, what it's become today, the behemoth that it is in the industry. Maybe just anything just from your backgrounds in hospitality, finance, and certainly startups that kind of led to, CLEO and just kind of how that's shaped things today.
I mean, definitely living in wellness and fitness and, really all things kind of holistic beauty from the inside out and building brands within 24-hour fitness and Lifetime that really are about the experience. They're about hospitality. They're about breaking down 1,000 friction points and making something very accessible. And then truly thinking about when we can be specialized, to Brian's point, and really obsess over laser, we can build an experience that does bring more of the magic to the space. The reason that people want to come and come back isn't just the results, it's the entire experience. So spending the last 20 plus years growing up in companies that are centered around the customer experience and also centered around being results driven, science based, and kind of putting all those things together for a customer that is a repeat customer that wants to return and come back over and over. That's a huge value add, I know. And Brian will speak to his background and how the two of us really do complement each other to truly bring to life an experience that I think I see every day, customers have not seen before in this space, and be able to scale it and create a brand that we know will make a lot of difference in this arena of the traditional med spa space.
Yeah, and the med spa space has been pretty tough to crack. I mean, there's a lot of talk of like roll-ups these days and even like VCs getting involved in roll-ups. Like consolidating the med spa space is not a novel hypothesis by any means. It's just been incredibly challenging. And yeah, I've taken like core learnings from that early build at Blank Street, into CLEO. Like obviously skincare is not coffee, but there are, some commonalities. I think, first really important part is strict product focus is really important for solving operational complexity at scale. We really believe in doing few things and doing them well. I think that's been really important to the growth we've seen at Blank Street in recent years. And I think like the second component is really finding ways to systematize elements of like unreasonable hospitality, not forgetting that these businesses are hospitality businesses. You got to really aggressively find ways to not lose the magic from those initial clinics. Like as you go from 2 to 5 to 10 and beyond, those are really front of mind for us.
As we looked at, the customer that we're really trying to serve for CLEO, from a macro perspective, the customer splits have been pretty traditional and, mostly women, definitely more Caucasian than there are people with darker skin types in this laser category. But with all of that in mind, we went into this to really create a brand and a portfolio that is accessible to more people than what you would traditionally see, or a more diverse customer than what you traditionally see in med spas. And there's really three ways that we did that. A large part of it is on the product side. In the laser space, there's a variety of different levels of technology. On the lower end, you will be only able to treat lighter skin types for most of the laser treatments. On the higher end of technology, which is definitely the more expensive lasers, those that are more medical grade, they are safe for all skin types. So that allows us to open up our business, and we see it every day, for the darker skin types that traditionally have been intimidated by this category of lasers. They know that it's really potentially a risk for them. We're able to kind of break all of that down because of the technology we have and serve that customer, which has been really exciting. We also are very much mindful of a pricing strategy that allows us to create more accessibility to those that just haven't been able to afford laser treatments. Even laser hair removal has been inaccessible and really out of reach for a lot of people, including myself. I was a person that, did the laser hair removal consults, and it really just became an investment where it would be the price of, buying a car. And why is laser hair removal something that, people feel the need to finance, and it's just really overly priced? So we have brought a pricing strategy to the market that allows more people to access these treatments. And then third really is around branding. We recognize that the majority of women are very comfortable in this space, but this is a brand that will also cater to the men that are feeling very comfortable coming in our space. It's not, designed with just a female in mind. We definitely made it so that men aren't feeling like they have to, dip in and hide and feel ashamed of coming into our space. And we actually have quite a few men that are routine customers, and that's a growing segment for us. So the branding has been really important, that we stay more neutral and definitely inviting for men and women to come and get treatment. So from an age perspective, really, this is myself, it's you, it's Brian, it's my best friend's daughter who's a freshman in college, some for hair removal, those that are doing the facial kind of skin rejuvenation. The younger generation is definitely looking at this as preventative. Taking care of your skin is in. It's the thing, right? We see this in skincare. We see it with Sephora, blowing up, and lots of the younger generation paying attention. We really believe as we continue to base our business on education and science, the younger generation is more sophisticated than ever at truly understanding what works. Less fads, less bottles and jars of serums, and more on what's clinically validated to help them delay and the aging process, stay up on keeping their skin healthy. And then we reach obviously the spectrum of, the 60-plus-year-old with deep fine lines and wrinkles, a lot of sun damage, things that are troubling to them as they're starting to age. And we can work with them again at all ages of their journey, in their skin journey, to help them with whether preventative or really trying to be more corrective and reverse some of that aging that's happened over the years.
Great. Super helpful. And maybe this is a moment, just as you've mentioned med spas, you've mentioned this kind of broader shift within the consumer behavior, especially this younger generation. Is there anything you can kind of share more on, just like certainly why you exclusively focusing in on lasers, and just where you've seen this category come from, whether it's over the last 5 years, and just really where you're seeing it go over the next 5 years, and just what that kind of confidence is, and why this space is just seeing such radical growth as well.
Yep. I'll highlight a few things, and then Brian, I want you to jump in as well. But laser, obviously, we are specializing in laser, and largely because it has been the gold standard for a long time. This isn't new technology. Laser treatments are clinically studied, FDA cleared. They are proven to work and treat skin concerns because they can work at deep levels or deep layers of the skin. They can get into the dermis, which is the second layer of the skin, and really address the root cause of the problem, whether it's pigmentation, whether it's fine lines and wrinkles, whether it's acne scars. Laser is proven. So it's clinically validated to work. It just hasn't been accessible, and a business kind of put together in a way that it can be accessible to the masses. So that's why we are centering and really putting all of our effort and energy, no pun intended, around laser technology because it is the gold standard. It's just been inaccessible.
Yeah. And really, choosing one service and doing it well has not been, the consensus path for the PE folks and mom and pop new entrants. It's really been around maximizing as much revenue as possible on a per clinic basis. And that means complicating your operations of offering chemical peels, filler, Botox, et cetera. And I think, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, especially when you try to scale those complex operations, it doesn't lead to the best income. So again, we come back to, we're big believers in laser. It's super comprehensive that we can manipulate laser physics to address the core concerns of, the college freshman all the way to the late stage mother that lives in, the suburbs of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And so, yeah, we're really excited about this.
Why did you start in Minneapolis versus a tier one city? And certainly, what you've seen so far and what's that taught you so far in and around a non-coastal city?
Yeah, for sure. So, having these experiences scaling four-wall brands prior to CLEO, both of us, we're pretty big skeptics of the Frank Sinatra New York thesis of, consumer and four-wall, which is if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. We think that if you index too much on this consumer that's on Wellness Row and Flatiron, or, Williamsburg, where I am right now, or even West Hollywood in LA. I think it can ultimately be a distraction, as a lot of these geos are just, atypical and represent maybe sub 5% of the TAM in the US. So we really looked at the first two locations in Minneapolis as a stress test of what it's like to build a multi-hundred unit brand across the country, because you run out of those neighborhoods, really quickly. So we chose two very different profiles of real estate, kind of your classic strip mall in Maple Grove, Minnesota, with our Benihana and TGI Fridays as neighbors, and then a slightly higher end area. And both clinics are ramping really well. And we're proving that, we can make this work with demographics and real estate form factors. So getting some of that assurance up front, versus year 3, year 4 in the business, we felt was really important. And then, I think a lot of people sleep on Minneapolis. I'm not the biggest fan in January or February when it gets sub-zero, but people forget that for consumer facing businesses, Minneapolis is where so many iconic ones got their start. Of course, Amber comes from Lifetime, but Target's there, United Health, Best Buy. And I think, a lot of that comes down to the diversity, and, Minneapolis provides a great test bed, for the launch of large multi-unit brands.
Yep. That's incredible. And then maybe directing this to you, Amber, I think one of the reasons we invested was certainly, thinking through all of those things that Brian just kind of mentioned around Minneapolis, certainly the hotbed. I think kind of took us over the edge, was kind of hearing a little bit more about just the customer service and just learning about the obsession that you all have kind of built into the experience so far. Anything you can share on just kind of, what that looks like to the future of these clinics and the future of kind of skincare within CLEO, and how that's kind of driving the success for you all?
I think Brian and I both have a real passion for doing things right by our customer and by our providers. And the two have to kind of come together. Our brand really comes to life and is everything we want it to be in this treatment room with our providers. So it does start there with talent. It starts with taking care of them, investing in them, making sure that they are certified, educated, and ongoing supported to continue to take really good care of our clients. And that's giving them treatments that work, that we believe in. The start of all of this is really believing in CLEO's mission. We don't take that lightly. I'm on calls with our providers every week, and it starts with that. We don't skip to numbers and spreadsheets. We talk about taking care of our clients. And I grew up in that environment. I do give a lot of credit to Lifetime because that is how we are wired. It's not perfect, and every day there's challenges to do that, but it is scalable. I lived it and can truly understand that if we can obsess over our client experience and truly deliver results and take care of our providers, those are all scalable things. It just takes us staying focused. I believe that each time, we show up every day as a day one mentality. Every day needs to be a brand new customer that we have a day one mentality of. It's the first time, it's the first guest. It's a guest that we want to create a client out of. It's consistency, it's repetition over and over. And I believe that if we can all do our part, this is a very exciting business to build. The clients are proving to us that with education, science, results, taking care of them, they are clients of ours. They come in, they try us out. There's some skepticism and intimidation, and we can bring them into CLEO and they become clients of ours. Our retention is great. We're keeping them coming back because this isn't a one and done treatment. This is an ongoing investment in your skin health or your tattoo removal or laser hair removal. So our ability to repeat the day one mentality every day with our clients and deliver the experience isn't rhetoric. It's not something we just tell you and other investors. It's what we live and breathe every day. Scaling, myself and the ability for the team to carry this on in every single location I've done before. I have built great teams that can continue to be as passionate as we are. So I'm not fearful about the scale of this across the states that we move into if we have the right talent and we invest in our people in the right way.
Yeah, no, it's well said. So maybe turning to what's ahead and what's next, just curious here. Certainly seeing success, in the first two locations. Just anything broader that you can share on where does CLEO find its growth going forward, and certainly how are you thinking about scaling the business?
Yeah, for sure. In our businesses, it's really kind of three things that you can do. First one, increase utilization of the boxes. Number two, grow number of boxes. And number three, increase pricing. And we're really focused on the first two right now. From a utilization perspective, that we're keeping things really tight on the segment of laser. We are launching a new treatment formally next week. Been soft launching it and getting feedback over the course of this week, and we're really excited about it. As we think it brings in a slightly broader consumer. It's a great entry level treatment. So, building a moat over a longer term time horizon, it's really important to be innovating on the treatment side. And then secondly, of course, we're focused on new markets, which is a ton of fun. We'll announce this in the next couple of weeks. But I guess to the prior question of why Minneapolis or whatnot, I think you could probably find an answer that we're probably not signing a lease on Wellness Row quite yet. Expect us to kind of be further doubling down on Midwest and going into Sunbelt as a next step. And yeah, I think in these types of businesses, blitz scaling and tackling the opportunity just does not make a ton of sense in the early stages. That striking the right balance on growth is really important. And the first two clinics was the stress test. Nobody in kind of real estate or consumer world is going to tell you build two boxes right out of the gates. We just wanted to learn as much as possible, kind of to the prior point that med spa has been really difficult to scale. Amber and I proved that we could launch two locations a matter of weeks away from each other. It almost cost losing a couch on the side of the highway in Minneapolis that we didn't rig properly. We made it work, and are confident in the upcoming launches and bringing CLEO to new consumers.
That's awesome. Well, I think that transitions well. I think we're excited for what's ahead. Just as perhaps a final question here, just what does success look like for CLEO over the next 5 years? And certainly just hoping to kind of get what does the win look like in the end, whether that's in 5 years, 10 years, or just building a category leader in the space as well.
Yeah. Long-term vision is to be the category-defining player in cosmetic laser. In a world where these types of evidence-based treatments are accessible to all, and not just kind of the top 1% that's in a clinic in Beverly Hills. We see a world that's probably the 10-year plus where laser is as ubiquitous as the proactive 3-step acne treatment that every teenager got on when I was growing up, or a retinol subscription for a millennial. We want laser to be something that's not just gatekept, that is truly accessible. So there's a lot of product innovation that needs to be worked out from that standpoint and really get the business model churning that we can bring new consumers into the category.
Well, to close, I think perhaps to the extent there's listeners here are from Minneapolis, but if there are listeners on here, how can they find out more and learn more about CLEO? Would be a question just as we leave the listeners today?
Yeah. Website is www.cleoskinandlaser.com. And then you can find, Amber and I, shoot us an email, Brian or Amber at cleoskinandlaser.com.
Love it. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And just excited to partner and for what's ahead. So thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.